Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode, I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film would become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. Hello, welcome back to part 2 of the podcast where we are talking my Goth movies. But first, as you probably already know, this is the part of the show where we talk about your Instagram responses from the previous episode. And that previous episode was on Kevin Costner films and Andrew Corns from the Revisionist Almanac podcast. Always a tongue twister. That literally should be the subtitle of their podcast. Always a tongue twister. Went with Field of Dreams, and the year was 1985. Said a tie between 13 Days and Waterworld. Okay. Movie boners went with Open Range. And Anton Kinelov went with Dances with Wolves and Trainer. I'm not sure what that one is actually, but there we go. So that's your responses. Liz, I am intrigued. What is your Kevin Costner film of choice for you?
Okay, so I picked 2.
2? Another tie.
Yeah, of course. And these shouldn't be a surprise because I'm a sucker for a good story and a rom-com.
Of course.
So I have Rumor Has It and Field of Dreams. Both good films, feel good films. So
I'm really surprised through the Kevin Costner episode that no one has picked, neither me or the guest picked, and the responses and yourself never went with Robin Hood and the Prince of Thieves.
Yes, Robin Hood was a great one.
I do have a big soft spot for that, even though he's talking American the whole time. But yeah, he can't really change his accent. Especially when I feel like Morgan Freeman is trying to put on a bit of an accent like he is from, the Middle East, whereas Kevin Costner's like, nah, I'm not doing it.
That is what it is.
Yeah. Right, so my movie then, this was kind of an easy decision. I think I did my kind of top 10 films of last year as an Instagram post, because Pearl actually came out pretty late actually for us. It was like March 2023. I think in the States it was like September 2022 or something. Mm-hmm. So it was a long wait for some reason. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think other movies in contention for me were things like, certainly X was up there, and you've got, what was the most recent one? I was very intrigued by the Brandon Cronenberg one, Infinity Pool. That looked really creepy and interesting, but I was like, I know who my guest is.
Oh yeah, Infinity Pool.
Yeah, Liz might tear that apart probably. So, and Suspiria, I was really intrigued by, but I don't think it's a little part for her. So I ultimately went with Pearl, and obviously I haven't seen Maxxxine yet. Very excited, but out of Pearl and X, I prefer Pearl a little bit, only because I think just the end kind of confused me a little bit. The fact that they show the picture of Pearl from this film Pearl at the end, I'm like, that's my Goth. What the hell? But then what? But then she's Maxxxine as well, so I didn't realize that she was playing a dual role part. So that kind of annoyed me a little bit. Yeah. Because you don't know it. I did not know it was her in X at all. She is covered in makeup. Great makeup, I must say, in X. So great film, X. But I feel like Pearl for sure shows off my Goth's acting ability a bit more for me. Yeah, she's incredible in this.
Yeah, she really got to run with it. And I know we're going to talk more in depth about the movie, but her monologue at the end is just perfect. And most of it was a single shot, which is very impressive.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't realize that, like, when X came out, I didn't realize Pearl was coming out. I don't think they announced it until after X came out.
Yeah, it was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but they did shoot them at the same time.
Did
Fun
they?
fact.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. So what happens in Pearl then? So in 1918, so you kind of have it's set in the backdrop of the First World War, and you've got like the Spanish flu, I think, going on as well. So there is kind of
influenza.
Yeah. Pandemic stuff going on, which kind of hits a bit too close to home, certainly when it came out, I think, for some people. But yeah, so a young woman called Pearl is on the brink of madness, pursues stardom in a desperate attempt to escape the drudgery, isolation, and lovelessness of life on her parents' farm. So it's quite a simple setup and story, really. So initial reactions for you, Liz? What did you make of Pearl?
I thought it was very good.
Okay.
Very well made.
Yeah.
You could tell that it was part of the X universe.
Yeah.
Like almost immediately. Like we mentioned already, Mia Goth is fabulous in it. And this one has a tonally different feel than X for sure. Each of the 3 films could be a standalone film and you wouldn't know that you're missing anything, which I really appreciate. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think, as we've said already, Mia Goth is kind of a force of nature in this film, and she really kind of steals every scene, frankly. And I just really kind of like this kind of tone here, because it's very technicolor of things of the 1940s and 50s. I got a lot of...
It gives Wizard of Oz vibes.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. You read my mind, Liz. Yeah, very Wizard of Oz vibes for me, kind of mixed with Psycho. So yeah, it's a really interesting mix. And we mentioned in part 1 as well that it gives you a false sense of security. There you go. That because of the color palette and it's all very vibrant, that you're not expecting like kind of the violence and gore to come, and I feel like they do it like really well, in my opinion.
They definitely do. And I have some other fun facts to share that I found. There's not a ton, but we already mentioned the like Technicolor feel of it. It's very colorful and bright. And Mia Goth has referred to it as demented Disney, which I think is like hits the nail on the head very well. Yeah. And then this is a pretty low budget film. So it had a $1 million budget, and they were originally going to film it in black and white because of the budget constraints. But the studio was like, no, like we're not doing black and white. Y'all are going to do it in color. So they did end up getting a little bit more in their budget because of that. But I think black and white would have been very interesting.
Yeah.
It would have added definitely to like the older feel of it, but I think the color works really well to their advantage.
Yeah.
And then the woman who plays Pearl's mother, Tandy Wright, was actually the intimacy director for X.
Oh, really?
So
oh, wow.
Yeah. So she like actually played like a motherly role in X, and then she got to be the mother on screen in Pearl, which is pretty cool.
Wow, that's kind of unusual. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I don't know whether like intimacy coordinators are they former actors? I'm not sure. It's kind of interesting. Yeah,
sometimes they are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Tandy Wright was an actress.
Okay, cool. So directing then, like I really liked the opening scenes here where Ty West gets across Pearl's character very quickly that she wants to be a performer, a star. There's a great little shot at the start where the lights go out in her bedroom and then go on again, but it's like a spotlight on her and she has like a little dance. Then her like German mother comes in and is like, "Why are you wearing my clothes?"
Yeah, take them off.
Feed the animals like I asked. So you get like immediately what kind of the dynamic is going to be in the film, like between Pearl and her mother. Pearl wants to be a star while her mother just wants her to help out on the farm. Like then you get this great moment again where she's pretending to perform on these hay bales
for the animals.
Yeah, for the animals. Yeah. great free show there. Then sees like a goose come into the, I think it's a goose or a duck, come into the barn, and then there's a brilliant like simple shot where she's holding a fork and just lifts it up out of shot, and you immediately know what's going to happen. Then the goose gets forked, of course. I must say though, when she's bringing the goose to the alligator, it did look a tad fake, but apart from that, the opening was really great, with this really nice sweeping classical music score, and it's just very bright in the colors, and it has a very distinctive 40s 50s style to it, which I really liked. And yeah, as we said, it has a very strong Wizard of Oz type feeling to it.
I think, at least to me, throughout the entire trilogy, a lot of the gore does look very fake, and I think that's like a stylistic choice from Ty West to play into the old slasher style of film, which I think it works for this trilogy specifically because it is so dramatic and so over the top. I liked it. I like the fakeness of it. It worked really well.
Yeah. So you enjoyed the whole opening kind of thing? Yeah.
I thought it set it up very well and makes it very obvious like how the movie's about to go.
Yeah. I love the little scenes where you can see Pearl like starting to become a little psychotic as the film goes. Like you have the little scene where Pearl takes her dad, who's paralyzed in a wheelchair, to see Theda the alligator. So cute. And then as Theda approaches the little pontoon, Pearl pushes him a little closer a few times until her mother stops her. Then there's like a scene where she's imagining her husband coming home from the war in a very like hopeful way, but as she's becoming increasingly frustrated with her family, certainly her mother, and steals an alligator egg, and she imagines Howard coming home again, but crushes the egg and then cut to Howard exploding, which definitely caught me by surprise. So I thought that was quite a creative way, in a way, to kind of a little bit to express what's going on in her head,
to show her struggle that she's going through.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I did not see Howard blowing up like that. That was great.
No, especially with X coming out first and seeing how much she loves Howard and how much Howard loves her in those scenes. It was unexpected. Yeah, for sure.
I liked how like simply done David Cornsweat's death scene is. Like he understands quite quickly that Pearl is crazy, and she gets mad at him very quickly. So understandably, he leaves the barn and goes back to his car. Then the camera kind of follows him from behind. He gets in the car and the camera goes right around to reveal she's not followed him. He could just leave. Nope. Cut to the reverse angle and she's right there with a fork and stabs him twice in the chest. So I liked how the car just drifts off into the field as well, and Pearl just kind of falls over in a funny way, like she's never done it before kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then she kind of goes after him and goes to stab him again while he's on the ground, and just to make sure he's dead, I guess. But what I didn't expect was her to stab him right in the mouth, and I was like, oh, okay. So I like the fact that Ty West doesn't shy away from the kills and is fairly creative with it for me.
And I think having her, because after she stabs him the second time, he's very dead. Like he's very obviously dead. But then having her like traipse after him and make kind of like a show of it really shows how deranged she is. It wasn't enough just to kill him. She needed to get out all of her anger.
Yeah. Yep. She retained his handsomeness, I guess. Didn't want to touch the face too much, so right in the throat. So, so I loved how simple kind of the final kill is as well, with Mitzi at the end. Like, I think from the start of the scene where Maya Goth goes to talk to Mitzi for ages, in the back of your mind, Mitzi isn't going to come out of this scene alive. There's no way. And I think Ty West acknowledges that when Misty leaves, and it's just like a simple wide shot with a lot of like negative space, like he's waiting for Maya Goth to follow behind her. And when she grabs the axe, I just liked how the shot is extended, and of course Mitzi falls over, and you're like, yep, she's gonna get it now. You know, and the only thing I didn't like was this kind of the split screen stuff sequence that followed. Regular listeners will know I'm just not a fan of split screen. I'm always just like, where do you want me to look? Come on.
Yeah, pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked kind of the mirror shots, and you see some of those kind of techniques a little bit in old school musicals sometimes. So that was kind of nice, a nice nod there. Yeah, very graphic though, you know, of Mitzi's head being chopped clean off. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really tied in. Didn't expect that.
Yeah. I think too, I'm glad that they saved Mitzi's death for the end, because that one was the most heartfelt death. You kind of feel it along with Pearl, that she's how hurt she is, because that was her friend. That was her only friend.
Sister-in-law, yeah.
And somebody that she trusted with this information. And then for Mitzi to betray that trust was kind of like the final blow for her. And she was like, forget it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to fall fully into this.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is sad.
Yeah. And I feel like certainly the start of that monologue scene, that, you know, she knows right from the start that Mitzi won the competition. And she's just letting all this out now. She knows she won't be a star in Hollywood. And yeah, she's just letting all her emotions out, letting the whole story out, knowing that she's not going to let Mitzi live.
And she's never going to get off the farm.
Yeah.
She's going to live her nightmare for the rest of her life.
Absolutely. Have you got a favorite scene or shot for you, Liz?
I really, really enjoyed the audition scene.
Yeah.
I thought it was very artistic. It added a lot to the film. You could really tell how much Pearl wanted it.
Yeah.
She wanted the whole thing. She was willing to be vulnerable and put herself out there. And she knew that she deserved it. But then forces beyond her control kept her from it.
Yeah.
And I think that scene really, it just captured the whole essence of the movie just in that one scene. It was maybe like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was a really, really powerful scene.
Yeah. That's definitely my favorite scene as well. And it kind of starts off pretty suspenseful, like in complete slow motion as she's going in on stage. You know, Maya Goth is kind of completely glum-faced, and they really like emphasize the sound effects of the piano opening up, and then as soon as the music starts, she kind of bursts into life. And then there's like a kind of a great fantasy curtain that draws back, and you know the war is going on behind her with the soldiers, the backing dancers as soldiers. That was really interesting to see. And it's like kind of straight out of a 50s musical. Like for me, I feel like she was really good for a moment. And I was like, I thought they were going to say yes to her for sure.
You wanted them to say yes.
Yeah, for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when they say no, I loved how they kind of just hold the shot on Maya Goth on her final position for what seems like a while. Then obviously she's distraught, and I love the fact that when she's screaming at them, I'm a star, the 4 judges turn into all the dead people in her life, you know, to kind of, you know, the dead coming back to say, I told you so, kind of thing.
Judging her once more. Yeah.
So that was a great little touch there, because it's kind of quite brief. You know, the fact that they switch up the judges to the dead people, and which I quite liked, because it just feels, it has a very sudden, immediate feel as well. Like she's just seeing red and just going through pure emotions at the moment. You know, she's not in the zone anymore of her routine, which you kind of get that sense throughout when you're watching this sequence, that she's completely imagining these dancers behind her, and you know the war going on in the background, and a huge crowd of soldiers that she's entertaining, and then that kind of all kind of comes away in a different way of just rage at the 4 dead people that she's killed, you know. And certainly her mother is
front and center.
the main judge there.
Yeah.
So that was definitely great. So yeah, just a great little sequence of just playing with imagination and fantasy elements, but kind of expressing how she's feeling in that narratively and visually. So that was really good.
Yeah. You get a really good idea too of how much she just wants to be appreciated.
Yeah.
For what she can offer, and nobody will give that to her. Everyone in her life has betrayed her in some way, and or at least in her eyes. And even though she's like not a good person, we've watched her kill animals and people at this point, and you're still like,
she's just feeding her pet alligator. That's fine.
Come on, like this girl just cannot catch a break. Like all she wants is to be in this musical. Like, come on. Like, she's not blonde, but like dye her hair. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty cynical that they're just like going for someone blonde. Yeah. Directing score for you, Liz? What are you going for?
I'm gonna give him an 8.2.
Cool.
I thought it was pretty good. Pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna go in the 8s as well. Maybe a little bit higher. Because as we kind of said, I think Ty West does a great job of keeping this kind of classical style of the 50s, 40s, you know, the golden era of Hollywood, they say, and kind of adding his own touch as well, like with modern technology, but not doing too much really, while still keeping his creative touch with certainly the kills and things. So, and I think that's kind of difficult to do sometimes, especially in films like this. So yeah, for me, that's kind of really impressive. And he has a very clear idea, a very clear vision, I think he has with this one, especially. Well, in all three, I suspect. And yeah, I really liked it. So I'll probably go like an 8.5 for me.
Nice. Yeah, they did a really good job capturing or creating the true slasher film, but not having that be the focus of the film. It's not focused on the killing, even though it's not. It's about Pearl and her struggle, and then she's killing people because she's struggling.
Yeah. I think, what Ty West does great is, compared to A Cure for Wellness, is that the mix of tones here feel natural and organic, and they don't feel out of place, whereas with A Cure for Wellness, they're kind of trying to squish in a lot of different tones, and it becomes a bit of a mess in that aspect for me. Whereas with this, it just works. The horror stuff and the musical stuff, the fantasy, it all comes
seamless
together. Yeah, seamless stuff.
Yeah, the transitions are really good.
Yeah. So screenplay then. Right from the off, the film makes it clear that Pearl and her mother are at odds. Pearl wants to be a performer, a star, and her mother just wants to protect her from the world. A story that's not particularly new, especially in horror. And a scene I found interesting, though, is when she visits David Cornsweet for the second time in his little projection room. He shows her a naughty French film of basically two people having sex. Kind of early three, yeah. Okay. Threesome, okay.
It was risque for sure.
Yes. And he says to her, people want to see reality now on screen and not necessarily the same old stuff of singing and dancing numbers. And Pearl says something like, I don't like reality. My own, I mean. And David Cornsweet is like, you're still young, don't waste your life. You get what you want. You can get what you want in Europe, places like that. So I feel like David Cornsweet is saying to her is that reality is different now in the entertainment business, or it could be if that's what you want. And because Pearl is so kind of suppressed by her own family and the outside world, that she just wants anything outside of her own reality. She has a very idealistic view on the world, whereas what David Cornsweet is saying is that the world is actually becoming a pretty sleazy and sexualized place. She can't see that at this point in the film, and that's that point is made very clear when Mitzi wins the talent show. And it's really interesting that we don't see Mitzi's performance as well, because, as they say to, Maya Goth, Pearl, we're looking for something a bit different, someone blonde and more attractive, something along those lines. So it's like, it doesn't matter what she would have performed, she was never going to get the part.
Never.
So,
yep. She was also, like, if you look at who was auditioning, she was the only one that looked different.
Yeah.
They all looked the same. She looked different. But another telltale of Mitzi winning was every girl you saw come out was distraught and crying.
Yeah.
And Pearl was also distraught and crying. And then Mitzi, the first thing she did was go console Pearl.
What do you make of David Cornsweet's character in this then?
I liked him. I thought he was... You were almost thinking that he was Howard because he believed in her and kind of told her, like, the sky's the limit. Like, you can do anything you want to do as long as that's what you want. And you were, like, hoping, it gave you, like, a kernel of hope that she was going to get it, that it was going to happen for her, and she was going to have somebody there to support her, which, as we know now, was not the case.
No.
But I thought he did a great job. He fit the role very well. And yeah, he was, believable. He gave you hope. He gave the audience hope.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just really interesting with his character. Yeah, you get this sense of hope, but also of just a stark reality that time is changing. After the war, like, things are not going to be the same, and it's just kind of really interesting to see Maya Goth as well. You get a little bit of like kind of the psychotic stuff coming through, where she kind of says, "Oh, I can't wait for my parents to die," and
he's like, "What?"
He's like, "What?" Nothing. Just to do anything to get out of this farm, of her own reality. And it's just really interesting that she's just very blind to what David Cornsweet is telling her in that moment.
Very naive, too.
I think what's really interesting about this script structurally is that, as we said, like, it's about Pearl and her mother fighting for superiority. But when her mother dies by being burnt alive at the halfway point, you're like, oh, okay, what's going to happen now? And I would have thought that was going to be kind of a great death scene that would happen near the end of the film. So it kind of brings some great unpredictability from then on, that you have like a big scene like that halfway through. Yeah. Did that come as a surprise to you that that sort of scene came pretty early?
I think the reason why it worked where it was is because it was an accident, and it was the only accidental death in the movie. Because when that happened, Pearl's mother had just shown her how much she loved her and cared for her and understood her. And I don't think in that moment Pearl wanted her dead. Pearl just wanted her to understand what she wanted. And we find out later that her mom didn't die at that point.
Yeah.
Her mom dies later in the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think it worked where it was placed just because she wasn't killing her mom. It was an accident. She wasn't happy with her, and she locked her in the basement to shrivel up and die alone. But it was an accidental situation.
Yeah. It's just a kind of a great pivotal scene in the film, because Maya Goth basically just wants a bit of respect from her mother, and just to say, I want to pursue my dreams, please. I might be a bit crazy, but and skip on my chores a bit, but let me do my thing, please. And you get, certainly throughout the first hour, you get this sense that they're gonna clash at some point, but you don't.
It's gonna blow up.
Yeah, but what I didn't see was the fact that it came so early in the film.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, she lost her structure. Like, her mom was the only structure she had because her dad was incapacitated.
Yeah.
And she didn't really have anyone else. Her husband was gone in the war, and so her mom was the only person keeping her grounded, keeping her from truly unraveling completely. And then when that scene happens, Pearl loses control. She just loses all control over everything. She runs, and that's when she cheats on her husband. And that's just kind of when she goes like
loopy,
just off the rocker.
Yeah. Early in the film, Pearl is set like a clear goal when her sister-in-law comes to visit and says she's going to audition for a girl dancing troupe touring Europe to support the soldiers. And then we don't hear about that or her sister-in-law for like a while. We just have the reminder that the pig has been sat out on the porch for a while and there's a lot of maggots there. That's kind of your sense of time, that your gauge of time in the movie, which is kind of a kind of great gory genius bit of plot device there. So I loved the fact that in the second half of the film, when all the people that need to be killed in Pearl's eyes, that the film can fully focus on the audition scene. So your full focus is on these two characters. Like there's no other characters to distract you. And I love the fact that the scene outside the church where they're waiting to be called in feels long, like they gradually go up the line. I love the contrast between Pearl and Mitzi, where Mitzi becomes increasingly nervous, and yet Pearl is like stone-faced and completely focused on the task at hand.
Very confident.
Yeah. Which kind of builds the tension, and I was like, what if she fails? They really build that tension up.
There is no failing.
Yeah. And I liked the fact that they switched places to give you a little bit of doubt whether Mitzi gets the part or not. Then if she went before Pearl, then we would know straight away, whether she got it. So that was just kind of a really interesting twist there that kept the tension up. And yeah, I really like that.
And you also get the exchange, the first conflict between Pearl and Mitzi.
Yeah.
Where Mitzi says, if it's not me, then I hope it's you. And Pearl says it has to be me.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure it even feels like a conflict. It just feels like, you just get that kind of focus. And, Mitzi is a very kind of passive character. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure, whatever. Whatever you say, Pearl.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. Funny and interesting lines. Have you got any for me, Liz?
So we already talked about the audition scene and when they turn her down and she's just screaming like, I'm a star, like, please. And then it turns into, please help me.
Yeah.
She's like, you have to give me this. Like, this is the only thing that's going to save me. And they're like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Get out. We have not yet talked about the scarecrow scene.
That enacting. Yeah, that's quite... That's
but
great.
After she's defiled the scarecrow, which I'll say we can talk about it in more detail.
Yeah.
She screams at it and she's like, I'm married. Like, how dare you? I'm married. And that was just very ironic because you're like, girl.
Yeah. I kind of love...
That was all you, my friend.
Yeah, I love the line after she kills David Cornsweat and is like, au revoir, poor Johnny.
When she throws him into the lake.
That was great. Yeah, that made me laugh out loud for sure.
Yeah. I also liked the very final lines of the movie.
Okay.
When Howard walks into the home and observes the scene that she's set up at the house. And she just looks at him like very innocently. She's like, Howard, I'm so happy you're home. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. The girl's unhinged. Yeah. Completely unhinged.
Yeah. I liked, I think towards the end she says, or someone says, how are you not scared? I guess I'm more used to the feeling.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah. And then I think my favorite one is, which I kind of, we've talked about a little bit in directing, where like Mitzi says, please, I'll do anything you want. It's not about what I want anymore, Mitzi. It's about making the best of what I have. And it's just quite a sad moment as well, I feel like, for Pearl, that in the end, this is quite a sad story, really. Mm-hmm. A kind of a tragic story that she's just really letting herself be who she really is and not what, and is not able to be what she actually wants to be, a star. And she just has to accept who she is in the end, which is kind of, it definitely has a very sad quality towards the end, for sure.
One of the lines in her monologue kind of clues you into the fact that she realizes what she is.
Yeah.
And she says, she's talking about how she looks at other people whose lives come so easily and how much she hates them for it. And then she says, the truth is, I'm not really a good person.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of clicks for you that she knows like what her life is going to be from here on out, essentially.
Yeah. So screenplay score then, Liz, what are you going for?
This is hard. So for me, Pearl wasn't as exciting as X.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know if that's because X was like completely new, like a completely new concept, and Pearl was kind of like building on X.
Yeah.
But it just didn't have the same wow factor for me.
Right, yeah.
And I think some of that is just because they were trying to give enough context. So there were some slow scenes and there was a lot more dialogue that felt like it was kind of feeding you information versus showing you information, especially between Pearl and her mom. Overall, obviously, I enjoyed the film. But for those reasons, I'm going to give it a 7.7.
Cool.
Still good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, still good. I think for me, I'll probably go a little bit higher. I think, yes, it's a very simple story, but I think this script kind of allows the Pearl character to really shine and come through, and you get there's a lot of depth there for me with this character. And I think it has some real kind of clever qualities as well, with the fact that, you know, that there's this concept about how she is seeing the world and what the world actually is like, because we get a very narrow view about her world and what actually is happening in the war and outside of this farm, frankly, because the whole film is set in the farm. And so it's just kind of really interesting in that aspect, and the whole conversation around reality and what's kind of fantasy for her and how that's becoming kind of blurred in her vision and her goal in life. So I found that really interesting. I really need to revisit X. Now I know, because I've only seen it the one time, so now I know that, you know, Maya Goth plays dual roles. I probably would enjoy it more.
I will say too, watching X after having seen Pearl gives you a lot more context into Pearl's character and why she acts the way she does, because you really don't get a lot of that in X. This movie sets you up to, I think, enjoy the character Pearl better in X.
Yeah. So I'll probably go like an 8.3 then. Right. Acting then. The scene.
Here it is.
Maya Goth is amazing during the Scarecrow scene where she's just riding home on a bike, where David Cornswear is like a projectionist from the movie theater, you know, and he's given her a frame of a movie reel, and it blows away, and she tries to find it in the cornfield, but all she finds is this scarecrow. You know, she asks it to dance, puts its hat on, and they dance for a bit, and it's a bit kind of weird and sweet at the same time. Then she kisses the scarecrow, and it's directed in such a way that you can see Maya Goth giving the scarecrow some tongue action. I was like, oh, okay, that's disgusting.
That's where this is going.
And I was like, ew. But then David Cornsweat's head appears where the scarecrow's head should be, and all of a sudden she gets like really mad and shouts, "I'm married!" Like it's all his fault that she's kissed a scarecrow. Then goes back into like weird mode and starts riding the scarecrow. Becomes very funny and uncomfortable at the same time. Yeah, it's a very natural thing to do to a scarecrow, of course. So I love the sudden changes in her acting, like going from like joyful dancing to the seductress, and then an outburst of anger, you know, to going for it.
That's a very well placed scene. And Mia Goth in that scene used it to show how lonely Pearl's character is. And you don't find out until her final monologue exactly how lonely she is, but it kind of just shows that she's looking for companionship, like in any way she can get it. And while it's kind of an uncomfortable scene and it's bizarre, it does a good job of showing that. Or at least alluding to it.
I love the acting from Pearl's mother, Ruth, played by Tandy Wright, right before her supposed death. You know, they're at the dinner table and she's just, you know, just casually, as you like, just puts the dance audition flyer on the table and then just has it out with Pearl and tells her what she thinks of Pearl. And I loved how calm she is to begin with, like in complete control of the situation. Then when she accuses Pearl of lying, Tandy Wright is brilliant in bringing out her rage. Then just before she slaps Pearl, it's like she's gone emotionally. You know, there's nothing there much anymore, and there's just a real like tired evil in her eyes. Like the only other thing which was slightly frustrating is that the scene was very dark, and like at times she's not, you know, kind of lit very well for me, and you can't see all kind of the details in her acting. And I understand that you want to like create a dark atmosphere, but I was like, it could have been even better if we could see what Tandy Wright was doing a little bit better. But that's a minor gripe. But yeah, I think she's great in that scene for sure.
Yeah, she did a really good job portraying the overbearing, overprotective mother figure. And that scene specifically showcased the range of that character. And I don't think just any actress could have portrayed that. I think that was a testament to Tandy Wright and her connection to this series, really, and the role.
Absolutely. I absolutely kind of love the scene where Mitzi takes Pearl home after the audition, and you're not entirely sure whether Mitzi has got the part, but it can't be anyone else really. But when Mitzi suggests it could be like a good idea to talk about her problems and pretend that Mitzi is Howard, who's away in Europe in the war, Pearl leaves everything out there about how she feels about Howard, that she hated him for leaving, and that all she wanted was to get away from the farm, and that her mother was just right about everything. Like you have like a few cutaways to Mitzi, but for the most part, it's just a simple close-up shot on Maya. What feels like a good 5 to 7 minutes of her just talking, and we never cut back to Mitzi, and you almost forget she's even there across the table from Pearl. Like Maya Goth is so compelling in this scene, like the fact that she has to get through so much dialogue and yet she's acting her ass off as well. Like she brings an uneasiness with the fact that you never know, you know, when she's going to finish this dialogue and when she's going to kill Mitzi, you know, because you kind of know going in that she's going to do that, I think. And when she does finish talking and we cut back to Mitzi, who is played by Emma Jenkins Puro, she's in kind of total shock, and in contrast doesn't say anything for like a minute, it feels like. So you can totally see like the struggle to find words after what she's just heard. So yeah, definitely probably my favorite scene of the whole film for sure.
Yeah. With Mia Goth's acting in that scene, I halfway expected when it cut back that it would be Howard.
Right.
Like she had started practicing with Mitzi, but then there was so much emotion and so much like she was talking to Howard, that you were expecting it to be Howard there. And then when it cuts back to Mitzi and Mitzi doesn't have the reaction that Pearl's looking for, that's when you know immediately, like, this is not gonna end well for you, my friend.
No, it's not. Plus I love kind of the ridiculously kind of long grin Maya Goth does when the film ends, and Howard comes home. I was just like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So another fun fact about that one. So the final smile shot at the end is 1 minute and 51 seconds. Fully.
Wow.
No cuts. and it was unplanned.
Really? Okay.
So Maya Goth becoming like increasingly more unhinged is because she was waiting for Ty West to call cut. And he was like, no, let's see how this plays out. Like, let's see what she's about to do. And you see she starts crying. She has all this like pure emotion on her face. And it's raw. It's real.
I do kind of feel sorry for Mike Goth in that moment. Like,
almost 2 minutes. It's crazy.
What's happening?
But it works well. Yeah. It's a great ending.
Yeah.
And I will say too, throughout this film, there's so many calls to Psycho. So many calls to Psycho. And that one being like a really obvious one.
Mm-hmm. With the dissolve,
that works really well in this movie. It works so well.
Yeah. It's just like it's like she just can't snap out of her kind of psychotic joy, if that's a phrase, to see Howard again. It's like, you have to accept me how I am right now, and I kind of can't snap out of this smile because I'm so pleased to see you, whether that means she's going to kill him or
can you just act pleased also?
Or just accept who I am and let's kill people together. I don't know. It's just a really creepy, weird ending, and very strange though. I was watching it like, what is happening? I'm not sure what's going on here, but I think that's kind of maybe the point as well, is that she's so kind of unhinged at this point that she brings just a great unexpected quality with that final shot of her just constantly smiling,
and it getting like worse and worse.
And Maya Goth must have been like, did you just forget to say cut, or what's going on?
So gotta stay in character.
Favorite performance? Silly question.
Mia Goth.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah.
She, blew it out of the park.
Absolutely.
She was amazing.
Yeah, same here. Mia Goth. Definitely my favorite performance for Pearl, the title character. So, acting score though, Liz, what are you going for?
I'm going to give it a 9.
Cool.
9.0.
Nice. Yeah. This is kind of tough because, yes, Maya Goth is great, but it's not a big cast. You've got David Cornsweet, you've got Emma Jenkins Pirro, who's only really has like 2 scenes. The alligator, of course.
The alligator.
I loved Theda. I thought she was great. Yeah. So I'll probably go. I'll probably go like a 8.9. Yeah, it's really good. I'm just not like, Maya Goth is amazing, but I feel like there could have. Yeah, I think for me to bring it up to a 9, and in the 9s, like there's got to be a few more maybe characters that perform a little bit more in terms of subtlety, or do you know what I mean? Like a bit more expressive in the film to really elevate it to something special. But yeah, Maya Goth is still great. Right, let's add up the scores then for Pearl. Yep. Pearl gets 50.6. Wow. So Pearl wins this episode. Yay, I win an episode. Oh. It's a rare thing these days. Whereas A Cure for Wellness gets 42.4. So Pearl wins. Next episode, as Deadpool and Wolverine is out, we are talking Ryan Reynolds movies, and we'll have a new guest again for that one. I've mentioned them already, and the year was 1985 are coming on, so that should be really exciting. Liz, you have been amazing. This is your opportunity again to tell us about your Instagram page.
Sure. So my page is @LizInAMovie. I do short form review content, video content. I do long form written content, and then I have short form fun facts. So if any of that interests you, hop on over.
Yeah. I do love Liz's fun facts. Always very entertaining. Right, it's time to say goodbye, people. I know it's very sad, very sad. It's goodbye from Liz. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from me. I'm just going to stick to beer, to be honest, and just not drink water anymore. I think that's just a pretty wise thing to do. And I will go to Switzerland and Germany, but yeah, I might just stick to the beer. Bye-bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.